Hello, Psych 101 students, and welcome to Module 5, Chapter 7, Learning Objective 1. How do you create memories? So let's start with a simple definition of memory: the retention of information over time. Pretty straightforward. But that simple definition ignores that you also have to get information into memory before you can retain it. And the memory isn't really a memory if you can't retrieve it. So there's actually three processes of memory. Encoding is getting information into memory. Storage is keeping information in memory. And retrieval is the activation or reconstruction of information from memory. In some ways, the process of remembering is similar to filing and fetching a library book. I mean, when a book goes into a library, they attach a label to it, and they enter it into the system, the computer system, or what used to be filing cards, and then they shelf the book. That's like encoding, and then it may stay there for a short period of time. It may stay on that shelf for a long period of time, and that's like storage. It's sitting there unattended for a while until it's needed. And then retrieval would be somebody actually looking up the Dewey Decimal number, that they use to store it, to find out, what shelf it's on and where it is stored within the library. And then they can go and retrieve that book from the library shelf, from the storage system. So it's a little bit similar to that. There is, you put the information in, it stays there for a while, and then at some point you retrieve it. Another comparison is that memory is similar to a computer, and people have used this comparison in the past, because information is encoded into a computer. Like, for instance, let's say you type a document into your computer. It's stored with a file label, either for a short or a long period of time, and then you retrieve the information when it's needed. You retrieve the document. However, beyond the similarity of sharing the same three phases, the comparison doesn't really hold up. Humans don't create memories the way computers store information. First off, your brain is more complex than a computer. It's much more complicated. Secondly, your brain is unique. I mean, one computer stores information the same way as the next, but every human brain is unique because it's been constructed based on your unique DNA and your unique set of life experiences. Remember the term plasticity? Your brain has partially formed in response to your environmental experiences, which are unique to you. So although they may have the same basic structures, my brain perceives and encodes information differently than your brain. My brain stores information differently than yours, and it retrieves information differently. That's why we could both witness the exact same event, but end up remembering it differently. And finally, human memory sometimes fails. Unlike computers that spit a file back, exactly as stored, human memory often fails in a variety of ways, including losing memories or returning just partial information from a memory or returning a distorted memory. And we'll talk about some of these in a later learning objective. Limited attention impairs creation of memories. So in order to encode any kind of material, we must first direct our attention to it. Most events that we experience are in life are never encoded in the first place. So often, what we may refer to as forgetting is really a case of never having encoded the information in the original first place. Think of all the people, for instance, that you've seen in the last day or two. Even just if you're people that you may have driven by or walked by, or maybe there was a whole bunch of people in a store that you went to, or you went to a classroom. I mean, can you remember them all? Even though like you saw all those people, like all the people that you saw, can you remember them? No. Can you remember? Well, even the ones that you saw that you can kind of remember seeing, can you remember what they were wearing? If you saw them, you probably saw what they were wearing. But once again, probably no. You would have it would be a hard time to think of all the people you've seen in the last day or two and also remember what they were wearing and be able to picture them. It's because you didn't attend to that information. So this is attention is the first step of memory. You will never remember anything that you didn't attend to. Think about, for instance, forgetting names right after you hear them. I'm horrible at that. I get introduced to people, I walk away 5 seconds later, I'm like, what was his name again? I mean, I clearly heard the name at the time I met the person, but if I did not, attend to it, I may forget it within seconds. So it's not enough just to see or hear something to remember it. You have to focus your attention on it in order to encode it into your memory system. Fortunately, we have the ability to consciously control our attention in order to encode the most important stimuli in our environment. We call that ability selective attention, the ability to direct mental resources to relevant information in order to process information further, while also ignoring irrelevant information. And this this idea was captured in a theory presented by Broadbent in 1958. Broadbent, 1958, is called the filter theory. It's a theory that attempts to explain how we selectively attend to the most important information and prevent irrelevant information from getting through our attention filter. This theory by Broadbent, his filter theory, was proposed to explain experimental results that were published in 1953 by Cherry. So his name is Cherry, just like the word cherry, which examined the filtering effect of our attention. And this is an example of one of his experiments. This is called a shadowing task. And what they do is the participant has headphones on where they receive a different auditory message in each ear. But they've been told to shadow or repeat just one of the messages. And so, this person's been told to repeat the message that's coming into their left ear. And so they have to say everything they hear in that left ear. President Lincoln often read by the light of fire. And in the other ears coming some other auditory information, such as a horse galloped across the field. Typically what happens is the person has no awareness of the unattended message. So both the volume of both ears is exactly the same, but they're repeating what they hear in one ear, and even though their second ear is hearing the other message, they can't remember any of it. I mean, this person probably won't even remember anything about a horse or galloping or anything else that ends up going through that ear. And it shows the importance of our attention filter, that we can attend to certain information and block out other information. Cherry in his 1953 paper also wrote about what's known as the cocktail party phenomena. And this is, think about being at we don't usually call them cocktail parties necessarily anymore, but just think about being at a party with a lot of people in a room, and there's is individual conversations going on around the room. There's some, some groups, some pairs, and so there's multiple sounds from different conversations, and you can, if you're standing in the middle of that room, you could move your attention spotlight around and choose to listen to different conversations. Like, I'm going to listen to what these people are saying, or what these people are saying, or what these other people are saying. Like, attention's like that. You can shift it and move it to attend to what you want to, you know, what you want to perceive, what you think is maybe the most important thing for you to perceive at the moment. Um, if you were intently talking to one person, let's say I'm having a great conversation with just one person in the middle of this room, and there's all this conversation around me, I can basically block out everyone else using my attention filter, where I'll have no memory of what anyone else was talking about, but if I'm intent in this one conversation, I'll remember it very well. However, the filter isn't actually completely blocking out all the other conversations, because if we were to hear a prominent stimulus, for instance, let's say all of a sudden I hear my name, from another conversation, even though I'm intensely focused on this one, and all of a sudden I hear like Waghorn over here, from some other conversation, it would immediately grab my attention. I was blocking out everything that was being said, everything else, but all of a sudden I hear the Waghorn, and it all of a sudden alerts my attention, and I would notice it. So stimuli that cause emotional reactions and also faces are examples of stimuli that pass through our attention filter in order to grab our attention, because those things provide important information in the world. Like, faces are very important stimuli, um, uh, to perceive, and as well as emotional stimuli. Um, for instance, while I'm having that conversation, if I often overhear the word rape or something like that, like coming from another conversation, it might trigger my attention and just grab it because it's a emotional term. And then what this shows is that our filtered information is actually being processed to some extent. If it doesn't grab our attention, we won't remember it later, just like this person in this study. But if something that was of importance showed up in her other ear while she was shadowing one message, it would shift and grab her attention momentarily. And I mentioned faces. Imagine I'm in that intent conversation, or my mother, who I didn't know was at this party, walks by, and like her face is in my viewpoint. I mean, obviously I would notice, even though I'm not really paying attention to anyone else. It's just in the background, but it's my mother. What's she doing at this party? So like, so it shows that we even when we feel like we're blocking out information, we do have partial monitoring going on to some extent. Not enough that we'll remember it unless it's important enough. And this is kind of like built into us. It makes adaptive sense. I mean, you need to notice when there's something really important in the environment, some danger or something. Even though you focused on one thing, you want to always have part of your system monitoring the rest of what's happening in the environment. And that is the conclusion to learning objective 1.